Welcome to Don't Chuck It Up, the podcast where we help students and families navigate the wild journey of the college search and applying to colleges without breaking a sweat. I'm your host, Chuck, and today we're talking about admissions trends that you need to know. You see, I recently attended the HECA conference, the Higher Education Consultants Association conference in Chicago, Illinois, where I also received the Bob Dannenhold Award. Stay tuned next week for more details on that. At the HECA conference, I met with several college admissions counselors during a college fair, networked with other independent educational consultants from around the globe, and attended amazing information sessions to increase my knowledge and understanding of what's happening in admissions. One of the sessions was called College Admissions Trends You Need to Know. It was presented by the National Association for College Admissions Counseling, and it fed off of the data that they had from the 2025-2026 application cycle. It was co-presented by Lynn University in Florida and one of our own fellow IECs, Cindy McDonald, who is one of the original amazing IECs who've been doing this for a very long time. Maybe not original, but she's been doing this a while, and I want to give her a shout out, as well as Lynn University and NACAC for putting this program together. So everything that I am talking about today is information that comes from NACAC, the National Association for College Admissions Counseling, and I will be adding some of my own thoughts to this. I'm going to walk you through the big buckets that jumped out at me during this presentation. Where applications and acceptance rates currently stand, what students think matters versus what colleges actually weigh in the admissions process, where enrollment is shifting and what counselors on the other side of the desk are seeing, and more importantly, what each one of these means for you during the college search and application process this year. So let's first start talking about the numbers. Overall, the numbers are still climbing, but not evenly. You see, overall applications across the country were up by 3% this past year, and this is the trend over the past couple of years. The biggest one to remember with this is that this is overall applications, not total applicants. This could be the same kid applying to multiple schools, not the total number of kids applying to schools. The growth continues, but applications are not growing as fast as what they had been a few years ago. Another big stat was international applications have declined by nearly 9%. This is a huge reversal after years of steady international growth. This is probably due to visa uncertainty, geopolitical tension, and a perception amongst international families that the U.S. is a less welcoming or stable choice than it used to be. For U.S. students, this could mean additional admission spots at colleges this year, who historically recruited heavily internationally. Applications from underrepresented minority students increased by 5%, applications from first-generation students increased by 6%, and there was a significant increase in the number of students who were eligible for an application fee waiver. So what does this tell us? I'm actually excited about this because this shows a significant increase for the students who really need the help the most. As the creator of Don't Chuck It Up, this was an area that I always hope to impact, helping students who are underrepresented, first generation, low income, understand and navigate the college search application process. So seeing that these groups had an increase in application actually gets me really excited. Now here's one of the stats that was absolutely shocking to everyone in the room, and it's about the overall average acceptance rate. You see, media and the news make it sound like it is nearly impossible to get into college now. It's more difficult than ever because students are applying to far more places, and the selective and ultra-selective colleges are just getting harder to get into. And this is where NACAC goes into the data. NACAC looks at the acceptance rate of all colleges and universities across the United States. And here's what they learned. The acceptance rate this past year actually went up to 73% overall. And this is up from 65.4% just 10 years ago. And that trend was a steadily upward trend. So I'm excited about this because this shows that it actually is not difficult to get into college as long as you are paying attention to the right colleges and universities out there. So my big advice is stay away from the prestige panic. As I've said in countless other episodes, you need to focus on academic and social fit as well as affordability, not the name of the college. If you want to hear more about this, check out my talk with Dr. Stephen Antonoff back in episode 95, or listen to the episode called The Colleges That Change Lives. The other big thing about stats was talking about ACT and SAT test scores. This past year, 5% of Common App member institutions now required standardized testing. You see, the Common App is a website, commonapp.org. It is a platform that allows students and families to apply to numerous, up to 20, colleges and universities, and over 1,000 colleges and universities accept the Common App application. Now, again, the news and social media make it sound like everyone's out to accept test scores and everyone is needing a super great test score to get into college. That's not actually true. This past year, 5% of the Common App institutions required test scores, and that is an increase by just 1%. So yes, more colleges are requiring test scores, technically, but it's still very, very small. In fact, over 80% of colleges and universities still have a fully test-optional policy. Also with test scores, over half of all applicants reported submitting test scores this past cycle. And the biggest jump was in students who came from affluent communities and metro areas. For first-generation and underrepresented students, they also showed an increase in submitting test scores, but at a far lower rate than students from affluent communities. Also, students were most likely to submit test scores if they were applying to a selective institution. So this does not surprise me, because students who come from the most affluent areas have way more access to test prep, being able to retake the ACT or the SAT, and they typically have access to college guidance in their high school to know when their scores can help them. The pattern of students submitting more scores to ultra-selective schools also makes sense, because they know that that test score can make a dramatic difference in their college application to those selective schools. And let's remember that test optional was never test blind. So colleges are still getting test scores, even if they say they are test optional, and we need to pay attention to whether it is a test required institution, a test optional institution, a test blind or test free institution. So what does this mean for all of us for this next year? If you're an international family or you work with international students, you need to come up with other possibilities and other plans, such as making sure that you have enough time for a visa or coming up with a wide variety of application strategies, because you may need more options this current year. If you are a U.S. citizen, you might look at colleges that have historically recruited international students because they may have an increase in acceptance because they are unable to enroll those students. If your family identifies as first generation or an underrepresented population, you are part of a very fast-growing and well-supported cohort. Many colleges and universities are actively building programs and outreach to help you. So talk to admissions counselors and make sure that they know that you are looking for that support. If your family is only looking at colleges and universities with headline-grabbing low acceptance rates, you need to zoom out and check out the big picture. 73% is the average acceptance rate across the entire country, which means there are hundreds, probably almost thousands, of great colleges and universities that are out there that are excited to say yes to your application. Anxiety should not be driven by the media narrative built by the ultra-selective top colleges. I do recommend that everyone take the the ACT practice test seriously. And even if you're only applying to test optional colleges, because it can make a difference for some colleges. A strong score is still genuinely an asset or a benefit at many places. If costs or access to that test prep is a challenge or a barrier, know that there are still lots of colleges that a test score is not mandatory, and you can apply as test optional as well. But also know that there are free and low-cost test prep resources available. Talk to your high school counselor or contact me for more information. I also have several podcasts that talk about this as well. The second area of the presentation that really stood out to me was the perception gap. This was based off of what students think matters in the admissions process versus what actually matters to admissions counselors and the deans of admissions. Again, NACAC loves its data, and I appreciate them for all of it. NACAC sent out a survey. Students are asked what matters most in the college admissions process. Their top 5 were grades in all courses, ACT, SAT scores at number 2, extracurricular activities, number 3, essay writing samples, number 4, and grades in your college prep courses, number 5. When college admissions counselors and the deans of admissions were asked that exact same question, what matters most in the admissions decision process, here are their top 5, and I want you to pay attention. Number 1, grades in college prep courses. Number 2, your overall grades. Number 3, the strength of your school curriculum, what courses you've taken. Number 4, positive character attributes. And number 5, those essays or writing samples. Did you pay attention? Did you notice something? I didn't say ACT or SAT scores. In fact, those didn't even crack the top 10 biggest factors in the college admissions decision. Now, test scores can make an impact. It's just not as severe of an impact as what everyone thinks. You see, students really think that it's grades and test scores, and I constantly hear this from students all the time, and parents, to be honest. But in reality, from what we hear from admissions counselors, as well as my own lived experience as a former admissions counselor, it's not that at all. So we need to stop putting so much stress on test scores at the expense of the high school curriculum. A student agonizing over a 30 versus a 32 on the ACT should actually probably spend that energy on whether they took the best courses for themselves during junior and senior year. I have to convince students all the time that you should have a decent course load for your junior and senior year and maybe not take 3 or 4 study halls. You need to talk to your students directly about this testing issue. Many students are carrying real anxiety and stress over the ACT, SAT scores, and it's not actually matched by what is actually driving the decisions over in the admissions offices. These two sides are not the same thing. Now, when we look at what students say and what admissions counselors say, both of them mention grades, but the style of grade is a little bit different. The students think that overall grades in courses matter broadly. The colleges are much more focused in grades in college prep courses and connected to the strength of the actual curriculum. Meaning, what I've said before, rigor matters as much as the GPA itself. So a 4.0 in the easiest courses in high school available does not read the same to an admissions counselor as a 3.7 in more challenging classes. Now, a side note, I don't want students thinking that you have to take all of the hardest courses in your high school. Each student is unique and each student has their own path. Talk to parents, talk to your high school counselor, and plan the curricula that works best for you. Just keep in mind that the high school requirements to graduate may not be enough as the entrance requirements to the colleges and universities that you are looking for. You may need to take some more challenging courses than what you originally anticipated. But also, I don't want students feeling that they have to take all AP courses their senior year a full IB diploma, all dual enrollment, PSEO, colleges in the schools type classes. Those are great opportunities for students who want that challenge, but it is not required for all students to get admitted to college. Let's focus on the fact that also colleges are talking about positive character attributes in their top 5, and students don't even pay attention to this. And character shows up in a wide variety of ways in the application. It can be found in recommendation letters, in the essay, during college interviews and visits, disciplinary record, and how students actually treat people when they are interacting with them during that visit to college or meeting with an admissions rep in their high school. This isn't just little fluff. This is a real named admissions factor. So we need to talk to our students and think about, who are you asking for your letters of recommendation? And what do you think they're actually going to say about you? Also, when you interact with admissions counselors, they notice. This could be at a college fair, when a rep visits your high school, when you go to a college visit, or just in your email interactions with college admissions counselors. I know when I was an admissions counselor, I noticed all of those things and I took notes. If a kid was rude to me, I definitely put a note in their file. If a kid was overly polite to me or sent me a thank you note, I also noted that in your file. Character counts. Lastly, for this portion, let's talk about the essay, because it shows up on both sides. Both students and college admissions counselors say that it's important. And I also agree. So it is important to invest some time in writing the essay. Don't leave it to become an afterthought squeezed in during your Halloween or Thanksgiving break, because it's the one area where the student and the college actually agree, so it deserves some real time. I have several other podcasts that talk specifically about the college essay, and I encourage you to tune in. If you're enjoying this episode right now, make sure that you smash that follow or subscribe button, leave a comment, give me a positive affirmation, or share your own thoughts on what I've been talking about. Let's dive into the third area. The third area is where students are actually enrolling and some feedback on what they've been studying this last year. Here's what we know from the data. Overall, total post-secondary enrollment has grown by about 1%, and this is the 4th consecutive year of growth. Again, counteracting the media that say no one's going to college, everyone's staying at home, college is not important anymore. No, total overall enrollment is still growing. That includes 2-year, 4-year, public, and private. Community colleges saw the most growth at 3% growth this past year. This also takes into account students who are in high school who sign up for dual enrollment classes at their local community college. As far as things that students are listing as studying, the 2 largest growth areas this last year were anything within the health professions and the trades. Who saw the biggest decline this last year? Computer science and information science saw the sharpest decline in enrollment this past year. So what does this mean for you listening and planning on applying this next year? If your student is unsure about a 4-year path right away, dual enrollment and community college are a great way to start. It's legitimate and increasingly more common, and it's not just a consolation prize. If your student is locked into, I have to major in computer science because that's where the jobs are, it might be worth having an honest conversation about what the landscape is actually doing and how things are shifting. Encourage your students to pick their future major based on genuine interest and possible adaptable skills, not on a headline that they read 3 years ago. If your student is drawn to the health professions or the trades, this is still a strong growing trend and is a great time to research the various programs and options that are out there, because they're all a little bit different and all have a slightly different offerings and different affordability. So make sure that you're checking them all out. So don't let your student pick their major based off of what was hot back when they were in 8th grade. Encourage them to check out the current data before locking in a plan. Keep in mind, still, the most common major is still undecided. I also want to talk about the enrollment cliff, because you're going to see a lot of news about this coming up really fast. You see, this enrollment cliff isn't starting just now and it isn't totally random. it goes back to a sharp decline in the birth rate back during the 2008 recession. And those kids are now getting ready and are currently starting to enroll in college. So the applicant pool is genuinely shrinking as far as people, and this has been predictable for more than a decade now. This is very uneven across the country. There are certain regions of the country that are not even going to feel the enrollment cliff, and there are others that are going to be impacted severely by it. In Wisconsin, where I'm located, across the Midwest and in the Northeast, are going to be areas that are going to be hit pretty hard by this enrollment cliff. Colleges and universities are watching this closely, and enrollment management offices have known that this wave is coming for years and have been adjusting recruiting and pricing strategy to anticipate it. My prediction is that acceptance rates are going to continue to climb at non-selective or less selective institutions because they're going to compete harder for a shrinking pool of students. I expect to see that overall acceptance rate get close to 80% over these next couple of years. Now, the selective and ultra-selective colleges are not going to be impacted by the enrollment cliff. They are still going to see increased applications because of that prestige factor. A lot of students and families are still going to apply to those places in the hopes, cross their fingers, that they might get admitted. So those institutions are not going to get impacted. I also predict that we are going to see more colleges and universities close over the next several years. In 2024 alone, 17 different institutions closed. This is going to continue and probably accelerate. So what does this mean for you? If you or your student is considering a smaller regional institution, you really want to do check on the school's financial health. I'm not trying to scare you, but a closure during the middle of the college process is not great. I had one of my students who had attended one of those 17 schools that closed. It closed at a sudden notice and we were not ready for it. We were able to get that student transferred and get them back on a path. Note that this financial change is also impacting some of the most selective institutions in the country. Moody, the organization that rates the financial stability of many colleges and universities, released a statement recently talking about some of the most, shall we say, highly selective and well-known institutions in the colleges and downgrading them in their financial stability. So this can impact a wide variety of institutions. Now, this financial instability could also help you. There are colleges and universities that may be more willing to negotiate their merit aid or consider financial aid adjustments as they compete harder for every enrolled student. And don't assume that because this college has been here for over 100 years, that its financial health is a guarantee. You need to check into any enrollment trends, endowment size, recent headlines that the college has been headlined in, and take note of schools that might be on the significantly smaller size, especially schools with less than 1,000 students. The last area that I want to talk about is what are admissions counselors saying that are stressing them out right now? Again, thanks to my friends at NACAC for pulling together some of this information and also some of the conversations that I've had with admissions counselors as I attended the HECA conference and just in my general connection and coordination with people that I know. One of the biggest things is that there's a significant concern amongst admissions counselors about the government's impact or lack support of the state of education. This is really for all institutions in the United States, public, private, 2-year, 4-year. We are waiting to see what will happen. Every day is a new day. Stay tuned. There's also going to be an increased institutional reliance and focus on early decision applications this next year. Colleges who offer early decision are really going to focus on this pool. And yeah, that's going to be interesting to see. The test-free institutions, notably the University of California and the California State University system, are seeing a significant increase in the enrollment of underrepresented and underserved students. For students who apply early action, the rate of being deferred to regular decision, alongside the increase in application numbers that have been happening, is making it harder for colleges and universities to tell who's really interested in about enrolling in their institutions. Because of this, we're going to see a growing institutional reliance on demonstrated interests. It's going to be really interesting to see how that demonstrated interest plays a role during this next year and beyond. More colleges and universities are expected to move towards self-reporting grades in a way to help students get through the application process easier. Colleges and universities are still trying to figure out this whole role of AI in the admissions process. It's not going away. They just have to figure out what they're going to use it for, how they're going to use it, everything like that. Look at each college and university for their particular AI policy. Many of them are not even going to say anything for a while. Also, students are applying to a wider mix of institutions. More students are applying to both 2-year and 4-year, public and private, all in the same application season. So what does this mean for you and your students? If early decision is a realistic option for your family financially, now remember, early decision is typically binding, so you commit to the institution before you can compare financial aid offers with any other institution. It may be meaningful and to improve your odds at a top choice school in this particular application environment. But I only want you to pursue early decision if you are financially prepared to say yes without comparison shopping. If ACT, SAT testing has been a genuine barrier for you or your student, you may want to look more heavily at the test-free institutions. The data suggests that these institutions really can play an impact. Demonstrated interest is no longer a myth. If a college or university tracks it, you need to engage with the college. You need to open the emails, do the virtual information sessions, schedule an interview if they're offered, particularly at private colleges. You need to also visit if you can in person, interact with the admissions counselor at a college fair, or if they come to your high school. Demonstrated interest, I believe, is going to make a significant difference this next year. Don't assume that your unweighted GPA on your own academic record is the final word. Your official transcripts will still matter, so make sure what's self-reported matches what your school will eventually send. Also, this means no senior slump. You're going to self-report through the end of your junior year, but colleges are still going to see your senior year, so make sure you stay engaged. For students this next year who get deferred during early action, which was very popular this last year, don't read too much into this. It's not a rejection. The deferrals really are rising a lot across the country, and that is because colleges and universities are trying to buy more time with their applicant pool. They need to see the applicant pool a little bit longer to make better decisions during the regular decision. It is not a signal that your application is too weak. So let me give you some final big thoughts. Overall, applications are up, but overall, acceptance rates are also trending up. The enrollment cliff is definitely going to reshape the college landscape this next year, and colleges are recalibrating everything from their early decision strategy to demonstrated interests, and they're all pointing to the same advice that I have always given. You need to build a thoughtful, well-researched college application list instead of an anxious, long one that is filled with hyper-selective institutions. I also want to say that affordability and financial aid trends will need to be talked about, and I need to give those their own full conversation. Stay tuned for a future episode later this season. Also, next week is episode 100. I'm going to be focusing on gratitude, and I really do hope that you tune in to hear what I have to say. So thanks for listening to Don't Chuck It Up. If you are enjoying the show, please leave a comment or write a review. You can also DM me a question and I will answer it on a future episode. If today's episode was helpful, be sure to subscribe, follow, and share it with a family that is navigating the college search and the application process. Remember, I'll be back next week with episode 100, as well as more tips and tricks. Until then, remember, don't chuck it up.